Good evening and welcome to the NewsHour. The death toll from the catastrophic earthquake in Turkey and Syria has risen to nearly 21,000 with no end in sight.
Aid is slowly starting to trickle in, but for many, it's too little, too late. Jane Ferguson reports tonight from Antakya, capital of Hatay province in Turkey. Much of Hatay and neighboring Idlib province in Syria now lie in ruins.
Bodies gathered from the rubble in Antakya are everywhere, collected and labeled and stored in the street. No buildings are trusted anymore. Fresh running water is too scarce for the religious rites of the dead. An older tradition of clean soil is now used here to dignify the bodies. The heartbroken come to the cemetery to claim their loved ones. Few here held out hope they would find their missing family members any other place. But still, the grief comes in waves. Gonol Us has seen 10 members of her extended family arrive here in body bags. More are missing, she tells us.
I live in a separate building from some of the rest of my family. I went to look for my mother, my sisters-in-law, cousins, aunts. We know that they didn't make it outside because they are missing.
Her cousin Hamza Sayar lost a horrifying list of people dear to him.
My mother, my brother, my wife, my son, my daughter.
Still in shock, he says he remembers little of the days since Monday's earthquake destroyed his home and his life. Since then, hundreds of thousands like Gonol have had to grieve while homeless, destitute in a city that has no more safe housing.
I was with my daughter last night and had no roof over our heads. The last couple of days have been misery. It is only today that we received help. We built a fragile tent for ourselves with the pieces of cloth we found here and there in the street.
Antakya was one of the hardest hit areas in Turkey when the quake struck, but it was also one of the last to get any outside help.
Help has finally arrived here in the very south of Turkey, but it's really just today that you saw rescue crews like this and equipment like this making its way in here. Much of this city has had to cope by itself for several days.
The Turkish government has worked to clamp down on criticism here of its response to the crises. People complain off camera that they were left to fend for themselves for too long. In nearby Iskenderun, a fire that broke out among shipping containers at the port continues to rage as rescue teams search among what's left of the city. President Erdogan visited the city of Gaziantep today, close to the quake's epicenter. He joined survivors now living in a tent city to pray for the dead. Erdogan's re-election in May could very well hinge on his response to this disaster. Today, he assured displaced families that help is on the way.
While the damage assessment is underway, in this transition moment, we will provide $530 in financial aid to our citizens. And with this financial aid, we want at least to alleviate their problems a little bit.
Meanwhile, the first convoy of UN humanitarian assistance finally reached northwest Syria from Turkey after being stalled when the only aid crossing was damaged in the earthquake. It's bringing much-needed medicine, blankets, tents, and other supplies to the rebel-controlled area.
We need the cross-border assistance to continue in these very early days, because if we do not, every day, every moment, we're losing more and more people.
But the White Helmets organization said the UN assistance is part of regularly scheduled aid deliveries to Syria, organized before the quake, and not specific aid and equipment for the disaster relief effort. Angela Kearney works for UNICEF. She says the humanitarian situation in war-torn Syria is especially dire.
They need water, clean drinking water. They need sanitation, places that they can go to the bathroom in. And in many cases, they also need mental health support and psychosocial support, especially for the children. It's a very bewildering time to be, woken up in the middle of the night and now not have a home, or some of them have lost family members, and so they need to grieve for that. But it's that life is very, very different now.
Many Syrians are growing more and more frustrated that international aid still hasn't reached them yet, 3 days after the quake struck. Samer Hassani lived with his relatives in the quake-hit city of Basina. he lost 6 members of his family.
We are still looking for one of my cousins. She's 19. We have been looking for her for 4 days now and haven't found her anywhere, not in the hospitals nor anywhere else.
Further compounding the misery, one northwestern village became inundated with water today after the Afrin Dam, damaged days earlier in the quake, collapsed.
We just want people to help us, to shelter these women and children. As you can see, our homes are flooded and destroyed.
In the city of Salkin in Idlib province, 10-year-old Fadi Haider, one of the few lucky ones. He holds on to his father. The two and his mother and brother were rescued with few injuries after being trapped under debris for several hours.
We were here under the rubble. We were sleeping in the bedroom and then the building started falling on us. I was next to my mom and my brother was trapped under the ceiling. We got them out. We all got out, thank God.
Haider struggles to find all that he has lost. His family is one of only 2 that survived in a village of 500 people. What's left of his village is a pile of rubble and a faint memory of what once was.
The building here, they brought out children. These were our friends who we used to play with. They all died. We used to play ball with them down there. They all died. Every day, play together, they all died.
Time is running out for any remaining survivors, but he and his cousins have a message. No aid has reached northwest Syria. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Jane Ferguson in Antakya, Turkey.